keep giving it our all. Get ready for the ride, we're about to make the call. Get found, be seen, start to take the stage. Unlock your potential, let the world engage. Get found, be seen, we're breaking through the noise. With every rhythm, roll, we'll rise and rejoice. Get found, be seen, start to take the stage. Unlock your potential, let the world engage. Get found, be seen, we're breaking through the noise. With every rhythm, roll.
Yeah. Oh, I'm digging that song, man.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty entertaining when Facebook decided to say it was taking away from somebody else's. Yeah.
No thank no, right? No Facebook, no.
Well, welcome to Get Found.
And be seen.
I gotta have these on to be seen, or to see you anyway. I can take them off. You can see me, but I can't see you
I
now.
can't see you though. Wait a minute. Something's blurry.
Man,
Another episode. It's great to be back. We're excited. Hope you had a great weekend, everyone.
on the old St. Patty's Day for us,
That's right.
us American folk.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people were celebrating yesterday. So a lot of pictures on Facebook. A lot of green,
Lots of green, lots of leprechauns.
And here in Boston, a lot of people celebrate it. Absolutely. It is definitely a Boston thing over here as well. So, yeah. Sweet. So today, Monty, we're taking you back. We're going right back to the beginning. Where we started. To the beginning. That's right. Almost a year, but not exactly a year, but almost a year. And we're talking about taking imperfect action.
Imperfect action?
Right. Imperfect action.
I'm like an expert at that.
Oh, yeah. And Monty, we're talking about perfecting imperfection. You like that? I like that was ironic. I love that title. It's cool.
That's good.
Igniting growth.
Perfecting imperfection.
Perfecting imperfecting. That's right. And that is such a huge topic. It's interesting because I find for myself and for clients and people in my circle and also in our circle, it's a challenge. It's still a challenge. And it's a continue. You know what it is, Monty? You ready for this? Drum roll. It's a continual journey.
Oh my gosh.
Continual journey.
There's no destination?
No destination.
Wow.
No destination. So it's one of those things where you got to enjoy it. You got to have fun. Even though it gets tough, you got to enjoy it and bring music, bring lunch, bring whatever that could assist you on your journey.
Sound advice. Indeed.
Important. The more fun you have with it, the more creative you'll be, the more you'll get out of it, the more growth you'll have. You know, we talk about this multiple times, but the intersection of knowledge and experience and what it produces, that wisdom.
Imperfect action is so scary. I think that, this weekend I was caught up in the whole thing about not taking action because it would be imperfect.
Right.
So, well, what if I did this and then this bad thing happened? Or what if I did this and then I didn't do that? And so, what if you can what if till the cows come home? But if you really want to know what if, you got to take some kind of action so that you can get the results, so you can get the feedback, so that you see what happens and you can adjust your course. If your boat is just sitting there, it's really hard to adjust your course. You can change direction, but you're still not going anywhere.
Right.
So that imperfect action gets you going. And then you always can change course. That's what trips me up too. It's like, if I get started, well, then I'm going to be a boulder going down the hill and there's just no stopping. It's like, no, actually, That's the whole point. You get started and you can analyze. Like, oh, I can see some effects. Now that I've gotten going, I can see a little bit further. I can see, all right, that's okay. I'm not falling off the cliff. All right, we'll just keep going then. Or maybe it's like, oh my gosh, this ride is so rough. I am not enjoying this. Put on the brakes. Let's try a different imperfect action.
Right. That's so true. I think about in such a journey, I think about, having an artist background. When we have to learn a skill set, whether we're singing, dancing, acting, what have you, we have to go in that direction. And the cool thing about it is that as you go in that direction, you get a chance to observe yourself, because we're the only beings on this planet who has the ability to watch and think about our thinking. So it's such a fast way of learning, such a way to accelerate your learning, because you could pay attention to what you're doing and you can adjust. And with that experience, you could turn up the volume. If you're singing, you could turn up the volume. You could turn down the volume. You could try to get back on key or get off key. Or if you sound off key, make it sound good. You can sing behind the music. You can sing in front of the music. There's so many ways you can go. And it teaches you about, and it's a great analogy for business, because it's the same thing. There's no one way to do something. And I think as humans, we could okay, this is it. We can get so stuck on this one way to do it. And if it's not the exact way, forget about it.
Perfection.
Or I'm stuck. Perfection.
We get stuck on that perfection.
We get stuck.
And that's why a lot of times as humans, we don't move forward.
That's right.
But if I did that, then somebody would see that I wasn't perfect.
Exactly. Monty, we get stuck in the rut and we feel it in our gut.
Indeed. Yeah, like I said, this weekend fell right back into that rut.
Yeah.
Because I'm moving forward. I was taking imperfect action. And then I fell victim to that. Yeah, but things didn't work out the way I wanted. And then I put effort forward and I had to come back before I could go forward again. And I dwelled on the negative side of that experience. And that made me fall back into the rut again, because I don't want to feel that anymore. So I think mindset is huge here.
Right.
Because imperfect action implies a negativity, a negative connotation.
Right.
But we don't have to look at it that way. If we look at that, it's imperfect. Yes, but I want the feedback. I need the feedback.
Right.
Focus on the feedback rather than on the imperfect action. And that's what can help. That's what helps carry me forward.
Right.
So that this for the rest of this week, I can now say, okay, I did that. I see the results that I got. So now if I try it this way, I should be able to get better results. And if not, I can adjust this and I can adjust this. I have a plan. Okay, it's no longer imperfect actions. It's just, let me test your word. Let's test it. It's not an imperfect action as much as testing.
Right. And I love that. I love that word testing, because it reminds me of being a mad scientist in a laboratory, just testing things out. And I think about, what was his name? Who was in Back to the Future? I don't know if it was one of my favorite movies, but I love the movie so much.
The Doc.
And he was so, he was like, he go to one spot, then go to the next. And he was so amped up with what he needed to do. He was so excited. He had a lot of anxiety too. Don't need that. But he was on it. And it just reminds me of just being a scientist and just trying different things out and experimenting. You get so much information that way. And guess what? When you do it and you test it out, you're going to find nuances that no one else has. Because everyone, we're all unique. Even though we're the same, we're unique. It's paradoxical. So we're going to learn things about ourselves. We're going to learn things about the project. We're going to learn things about the brand that we're trying to launch, or the project we're trying to launch. It's just, it's such a, it's part of the human condition, which is fantastic. I don't know about you, Monty. I get excited about that because I think about what are the possibilities. I love being in a phase of growing. And so when I think about the possibilities, I get excited. So when it comes to taking perfect action, I'm able to think about, okay, well, what, as opposed to, man, what if I jack this up? What if this fails? What if this succeeds? What if I test something out and I find something today? Let me get on it. I try to reframe my mind with that because it's so important.
Yes, I agree. Experimentation mixed with that. And here's the difference between experimentation and imperfect action, and why you need to combine the two. Because imperfect action suggests lack of planning. Although we're saying it doesn't have to be that way. It just suggests that there's lack of planning. And experimentation suggests planning with lack of forward movement. It's like, this is just data research. I'm not actually gaining any ground. That's why you combine the two, so that you can gain some ground while gathering the data.
And that was good.
And sometimes that you think, well, oh, and here's a great story too. I had a friend lived on this little side road, and there was 2 entrances. Well, he lived closer to this one, which was harder to turn out of. But he told me, I can't drive down the opposite direction to get to the intersection that's easy to turn out onto the road, because I'm driving away from my destination. He felt compelled to drive to the closest turn, even though it was more dangerous and took him longer actually to turn out, because he had to wait for an opening instead of just waiting for the light to turn green. And so there's that. We resist. Well, if I take that action and then it doesn't get me anywhere, I have to go back. But that going back is arming you with information.
Right.
So that the next time around, you have a better chance of going forward. Right. Or even, it's not even a matter of going forward. You have a better chance of going forward and being happy with it.
Right.
Because I was going forward in some directions, and I could have made that work. But I figured out, I experimented, and it's like, hey, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
What if I did this for 20 more people?
Right. And that's true. I love that. I thought about 2 things. The first thing I thought about, one, is balance. You know, we got to try it out, and if it doesn't work out, great. But at least we're trying it out, as opposed to saying, what if it doesn't work, and not doing anything about it. So for each individual, it's different. You know, and the challenge, even with stuff going on online and marketing and things like that, is a lot of people say, you got to do it this one way. This is the exact way to do it, without educating people to say, okay, you need to reflect on it and find out what's working for you. And another thing I thought about too was, when you talked about that too, one thing I thought about, Monty, was the whole idea of, people talk about scaling a business. And while I respect that, and I find that true to a good degree, I'm more on the side of scaling my life. I don't want to just scale my business, because I can scale my business and my life's all jacked up. I don't want that. Because I'm gonna enjoy my business all by myself. But if I scale my life, I'm thinking about all the other areas of my life. And if I do make this choice, yeah, I could take imperfect action. I got a plan. It's a balance I have to strike. But if I find that I'm going the wrong direction, I can quickly pivot. I like using that word, pivot, to make sure that I'm having that life balance that I need. Because my life balance, my business includes that as well. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, it needs to. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to look at it as, you know, here's my work, and then I clock out and I go home.
Right.
And yes, you do need to have a little bit of that separation.
Yes.
But your work isn't, if you're an entrepreneur, your work is not work, it's your life.
Yeah. It's what you do.
It's what you do. Right. So it's integrated into part of your life. It shouldn't be your life, but it is definitely part of your life, rather than being this thing you go do and then you come home from it.
Right. I look at that, like, even what I do, I look at it as part of my communication. I just communicate it. Because I find, for me, if I do that, it allows me to be more authentic with what I do. You know, and also it's part of my goal of leaving a legacy. I want my family to be attracted to it, so that they can go in that direction if they choose to. If not, at least they have the option. That's you know I was gonna go there.
I knew it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's good.
oh
That's good.
yeah,
Yeah, and including the family, but not, expecting or leading.
right. They have a roadmap. If they want to go in that direction, great. If not, cool. Where you going now? All right. How can I help you get there? But
How
they
can I
grow.
help you take imperfect action?
How can I help you take imperfect action? That's right. And then let's go. Let's go on vacation. Let's go party.
Perfect.
Perfect. Perfect way to be imperfect. Oh man, this is good, Monty. But I'm glad we're able to rehash this conversation because it's so important. I believe it's one of the biggest topics of the hour because it's such a temptation to be stuck in a rut and not want to take any kind of action.
Yeah. I like I said over the weekend, boy, I was falling into that rut, feeling that same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, I've already been through this thought process, and I
Mhm.
chose a direction, and it wasn't the right direction. And man, it's so easy just to be like, well, that's it. That means anything else I do is going to be wrong too. That means, or just afraid. Well, what if it's going to be wrong? Even if you don't feel
Right,
like it's going to be, it's still this fear.
right. That's true. I know that feeling, brother. I know that feeling.
So the first time around, we talked about how consistent imperfect action is the same as practice, which I think now we've evolved. We've said it's experimentation,
I love that word.
because practice is trying to do the same thing over and over. You're practicing something, whereas imperfect action, where you're not practicing imperfect action, you're practicing taking action without being held back by imperfection. So I like that experimentation. You use that. I think that fits
Yeah.
in there. So consistent imperfect action is experimentation. And
Right.
experimentation, as with practice, gives you experience.
That's right. Which leads to mastery, and that's one of the reasons why I like that word. It's like you're leveling up when you use that word experimentation because you're able to intrinsically own it. You're able to own what you're doing, and that accelerates your learning. That accelerates your growth, and you're only getting into your destination faster. But you're really honing in and you're paying attention to what you're doing. You're being educated on a deeper level. Love
Because
that.
that practice, you're trying to do the right thing over and over and over. So you only have that perspective, where the experimentation is, I'm trying this, I'm trying this, I'm trying this. Okay, this didn't work out. Why didn't it work out? Because of these things. Oh, that helps me understand. Well, then that's why this does work so well, because of those things.
Right.
Oh, I have this deeper understanding about the whole situation instead of just being really good at the thing I practiced.
Right. Right.
So I'm not saying practice is
Yeah.
bad, just saying that there's a
Yeah.
nice distinction of how experimentation helps you grow in this way, and practice helps you get better in this way.
Right. And I love that. And one thing I think about too, Monty, is as I'm doing that, and as I practice and I'm leveling up to the experimenting, I one thing I think about is giving myself grace. Because sometimes I don't know if you feel this, but sometimes things just come at you so fast, and it's just hard. I heard that sigh, and it's hard to take it in. It's hard to grasp what you need to grasp, and sometimes you're not going to grasp everything. And you know what? That's okay. That's part of the learning process too, because if you get one, two, I think you're gonna might talk about this too, but 1, 2, or 3 things from what you're experimenting with, that's good. That's a win. If you get one thing, it's a win. So I found giving myself grace on all levels has been so helpful for me.
Yeah, you can't be too hard on yourself. Although there's a balance, because
Mm-hmm.
I am very easy on myself. I fall right into it's like, oh man, you had all of these things. Of course you couldn't get that done.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had told someone else I was going to get it done, and I told them, well, I didn't get it done because of these things, I'd feel cheesy.
Right.
It'd be like, yeah, these are excuses. For me, they're valid points. But if I'm trying to explain to somebody else, that's like, oh, now I feel like I'm making excuses. I should have just got it done. So I get things
Yeah.
done for other people, whereas for myself, I'm not quite so on key
Right.
there.
Right. No, I could definitely identify with that. That's true.
But
Part of that.
then you can
Mhm.
flow to the other side. It's like, oh, I made that mistake. I didn't do that right. Oh my gosh, I should have known better. Why didn't I do that? I blah 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 blah. It's like, just move forward.
Exactly.
Identify. Oh, I didn't do that right. Oh, well, what is right? Oh, right is like this. Okay, let's do it that way then. Boom.
Right. That's true. And I see people on so many different levels. They can have that mindset, and it's just easy to get there. And for me, it's easy to get there. And I found what's helped me out is giving myself cues, verbal cues, like with choreography. And then when I'm teaching my movement students, and we're doing movement, and I'll give them something to work on if I need to correct them, but I go right back to counting them in, and that's my cue: 5, 6, 7, 8. So, even for this in this arena, it's like, okay, I like to say, what's next? What's next? Or I'll give myself a cue, like I'll clap my hands, rub my hands together and do this, meaning focus. So giving myself cues is super helpful to keep moving, because it's easy to get stuck in that, and then, okay, this is going to take another 15 minutes to get started. As opposed to focus, what's next? Or play Brain FM. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Brain FM.
No.
It's a technology where you I had it too recently. Oh, it's a technology where you play the music, but the music thumbs up. The music is specially designed for you to be able to focus, for you to be able to get sleep, for you to be able to meditate. So they're specifically made by professional musicians for you to move forward in your day and with what you have to do. So they have that feature for business owners if they want to be able to focus on what they're doing. So I'll play that. And I mentioned in the first episode too, another tool I'll use is I'll do the Pomodoro technique where I'll time myself and I hit that timer. And I find that helpful. Like my kids, I'll give them a countdown and they're on it. It's funny because there's no, I'm mad at you. There's no, you better do this. There's none of that. It's just the timer's on. That's it. That's all that matters in the moment. And so relating that to being an adult, I use that with my business too. And I find that so helpful for me to get back on when I get stuck.
Cool.
So I gave 3 tools there, but I think giving yourself cues is very helpful when it comes to taking that action.
Yeah, I like that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's also interesting to analyze things like that. It's like, hey, I think I kind of do that in certain ways.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I have certain things I do that are like, oh, that's what I do when I'm trying to move forward, when I'm trying to focus.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is good because it helps you to be more intentional about it too, and you can use it as a strength. And it's cool because I'm reminded of that because I was speaking with a client this week. I did something on Saturday, did some work on Saturday, and this guy's done incredible things. But it's easy, we had in our conversation. I noticed a pattern of him getting stuck with and taking that imperfect action, and it was what I got amazed at stories, and it just shows me how powerful our stories are. We can still be so down on ourselves, but it's so important to pay attention to what are some things and strengths that we already have that we can use. Like you mentioned, here's some things I already do that. I already do this. There are some things that we already do as people. If we try to extract it out and pay attention to it, that might help us out on our journey with taking imperfect action.
Well, like you've said, so that you can do those things with intent rather than doing them accidentally.
Exactly.
You can identify, hey, I do that and it works well for me when I do that. So if I can think about it and plan to do it, then I can, here we go. I can amplify that result.
We use amplify, we use intent. What else do we use today? Our favorite words.
So imperfect action.
Imperfect action. That's a perfect phrase. That's
That's
true.
all
We use it.
fits in there.
We use it. We use it. Oh yeah. That's good. That's true. So true, Monty.
And it's so
Yeah.
easy to. Here's another interesting point with taking imperfect action. Because all weekend I was struggling over that whole concept. It's like, oh, but if I do this, then the blah, blah, blah. It's interesting how other people can look at your situation, or you can look at other people's situation, and it seems so crystal clear. What are you even talking about? It's so obvious. Yeah, but oh man. So coach. That's what's on your. I'm an author.
Right.
Coach.
I'm a
Yeah.
coach.
So getting a coach and having a coach, it doesn't even have to be a coach. Have a good friend. Have a business partner. Have someone else analyze the situation for you, and just ask you some questions.
Right.
So that and really that's what I did with someone this morning. They just asked me some questions to understand my situation better. But by asking me questions, I was understanding my situation better.
Right.
I should say, by answering those questions, I was understanding my situation better.
And both are right, actually, because that whole process of that person asking you the questions and you thinking about it, and then you answer it, even as you're answering, the ahas come, or even after. It's a whole.
I was going to say, sometimes I have said stuff, and then it's like, wait a minute, let me just think about what I just said. Wow.
Right.
That's why you try and record everything.
That's right. Record. And that can become content too. That's why I have a shirt that says, "You are content."
Hey, you could elaborate. That could be, "You are content."
Right. Let it echo. And Monty, that's so true. It's such a powerful tool that it's easy to not pay attention to. But I believe it's one of the best tools that you can have at your disposal, because it's right there. It's just a conversation. I had a great friend of mine, and I mentioned this before, but he said, for those who may not be listening, I was struggling with something. It was amplifying my business, actually, and getting more clients. And he said to me, well, what would you say to someone who you're coaching? I was like, oh, shoot. That was his question to me. And that question did it all for me, because I could be that person who's in a position to ask myself specific questions that I'd ask other people. And it's just as powerful, even more powerful than if I would ask that person, because I have the power to make that decision right there. And I know the results that happen. I've seen the results in myself and other people. So there's a lot, that power is amplified, right? Because I've seen it, I've been through it, but it's easy to get into that rut. So that could be a cue. That could be one of the cues.
Indeed.
Ooh, I sense a blog coming on, Monty.
Yeah.
So we talked about practice. We talked about experience, right? Somewhat, because it's like experimenting that creates the experience, right?
Yep. And here's, I don't know. There's the differentiation between knowledge and experience, and then wisdom. So it's just kind of interesting there that your imperfect action is the first step for all of that. Your imperfect action gains you the experience, gains you the knowledge. By taking the action, there's the experience. Knowledge is just knowing. Experience is when you've taken the action.
That's right. That's so, and I love that process, Monty. It reminded me of, walking into a room. Taking the imperfect action is reaching your hand to grab the knob and turning it. Opening the door, that's a knowledge. And walking through, that's the experience. shutting the door and looking at that big room. That's the wisdom that you receive. It unlocks so much for you. Remind me,
That's
it just
interesting.
made me think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that the wisdom comes from multiple experience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have the knowledge means I read about it, I know about it. Experience means I've done it, and wisdom means I've done it successfully many times.
Right. And I dare even say too, because working with my son, he's working on some projects. If we really, really pay attention to what's going on, we rocking, like as a choreographer, like I got to be able to see all the details as much as possible because it's on the line. I got one chance. I got one shot when I get a project, right? And so I have to be very keen to the details. But if you walk into an experience, right? You get some knowledge. You're experiencing what you experience, and you're really, really paying attention, and your senses are heightened, and you're being super intentional. You can get a lot of wisdom from that one thing. Now, there's a balance with that because if I'm rushing or if I'm greedy or if I'm not thinking, I just want to get the result quickly and not master the process. We've talked about that. That's when it could be a challenge. That's where it could be dangerous. But if I'm taking my time and I'm looking at I'm mastering that process. I'm trying to get that experience and I'm trying to take it all in. There's so much you can get from that. That's just my point,
Yeah, I agree with that. I what I was thinking about was, like the old gold miners, or I don't know, that's a good enough example. Old gold miners. So you have people who are experienced, but then they run into something. They're like, oh man, hey, let's go ask old Joe. He's been gold mining for 40 years. So there's that experience and wisdom. Their experience, they've been we've been doing it for 10 years. But
Right.
hey, we just ran into something new. We're encountering this problem. It's like, well, we could bash our heads against it a whole bunch of times. Or let's go look up somebody who's been doing it 4 times as long as we have.
Right.
So I think that the wisdom is also perspective. Because then there's the guy that's been mining for a year. And he's like, oh man, I got some problems here. Hey, you guys that have been mining for 10 years, you've got some wisdom. What am I doing wrong?
Right.
So there's different levels.
That's true. And what I'm hearing too, Monty, is it's going to be different for everyone. People will get to their destinations at different times. That's a reality.
In different ways.
In different ways, right? You have different pathways, which is okay.
Oh, absolutely. And there's that experience wisdom thing going on. It's like, hey, here's the result that somebody wants, and here's a way to do it. And here's this person who's done that, so they can explain how to do it. Well, here's this other person who's done it, and they explain it a little differently. Well, here's another person who's done that same thing. Well, they explain it a little differently. And so again, you have this almost the same road, but this guy drove in the fast lane. This guy drove in the slow lane. This guy shifted lanes a whole bunch of times.
Right.
But they all ended up at the destination.
That's true. I love that. That's hot.
That's hot.
That's hot. That's hot.
Analogies.
Let's go.
To focus.
That could be a show. Analogies. I love thinking about these shows, and that would be cool.
I can see that title, Analogies.
To experience learning. Talked about that.
Which all comes back to, you can't do any of that stuff typically unless you take some imperfect action.
Right.
That's the whole gist of the show. Take some imperfect action. Don't let fear hold you back. Now, of course, there's some things where it's like, whoa. I don't want to go walking out on that beam over the Grand Canyon without some safety gear and stuff on. I don't. That's not the imperfect action that I want to be taking.
Let's be clear about that.
You gotta analyze what are the repercussions.
Right.
All right, if I take this imperfect action, it's like, okay, so I have to try again. That's okay. Well, if I take this imperfect action, I'm going to fall to my death. I draw the line. Drawing the line there.
Right.
It's going to cost me $10. All right, it's going to cost me $100,000. Whoa, drawing the line. Drawing the line.
Mm-hmm. You might end up having some family problems. I'll tell you that. You don't want to do that. Don't do it. That's true, Monty. That is true. So what are some steps? How can we keep things simple?
Keeping things simple. Well, I think we mentioned about, oh, maybe we didn't, but doing the next logical step. Although sometimes, what is the next logical step? Oh, the next logical step is this, but I don't have time for it. Oh, the next logical step is this, but I don't have enough bandwidth to take care of that right now.
Right.
So sometimes maybe you need to, I don't remember what it's called. I just learned this from somebody else, but they pick the top 3 things. It's like, okay, there's the next 3 things I need to do. And they choose one of those based on what can I get done now? What's the most important? Yeah, well, can I get it done? No? All right, well, let me pick one of the other ones that I can get done. Let me take some imperfect action. Let me take some action. And whether it's imperfect or not,
Right.
take some action.
Some action.
Sitting down and saying, oh, I'll get to it later. But there's a great way of taking some action, be it imperfect or not, when I need to do this thing, but I don't have time, I don't have energy, I don't have whatever. Well, find something else that will help get towards that thing.
Right. Find something else that will help you get towards that thing. I like that. That's cool.
So one of my examples was I needed to start building a website. And I knew that I didn't have the brain power at that time to take the information they gave me in the blob and figure out how to distribute it onto the web page. But before I could even do that, I needed to set up the website and install the plugins. So I just shifted and said, okay, well, I'm not trying to make the page. I'm just trying to get the site ready so I can make the page. So when I do have the brain power, I can just jump right into it.
Right.
Half steps.
I've heard you say that before.
Let me get a half step so I'm part way there. It'll be easier to get to the next step.
Oh, we should have put a drum roll there. That's hot. Half steps. Yeah, it's important, and I love that because for someone like me, that's helpful because I'm the type of person that needs to hear or I need to say at some point, it doesn't have to be that serious. It doesn't have to be that serious. Do something, some small half step to just give you some momentum. And that will help you to get to your spot. And that gives you vision, that gives you hope. Because let's keep it real. For a lot of us, even for some of us as solopreneurs, sometimes we can lose hope. We can get discouraged. We can get exhausted. But if that principle of just taking a half step is so helpful.
That's been helping me because it is, you get overwhelmed. You get to that point, like, okay, well, here's the 3 things I need to do. I'm not up to doing any of them. And so now I don't do anything. And so now I'm falling behind. And then that's the momentum you've just built. Because then the next time you go to do something, you've already acknowledged that, well, if I do nothing, it's okay.
Right. Right.
And that's my danger is that if I give in and say, yeah, well, I'll do it tomorrow. Then my brain says, well, you have a valid excuse. You just validated it. That excuse is valid.
Right.
And then the next day, your brain already, it's like, yeah, well, here's an excuse for you. You used it yesterday. It works out. It works great. You know it works great. It worked yesterday.
Right. And here comes the habit.
Harder and harder and harder.
Here comes the habit.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's my momentum. I like the saying, there's several different versions of this, but there's the saying about there's 2 wolves inside of you. One's evil, one's good. constantly at battle, and which one's going to win? Well, the one you feed, the one you do. So take that into perspective on anything. Am I going to be motivated or not motivated? Well, which one are you going to be? The one you
Right.
feed, the one you do the most of.
Right.
And that's hard. I understand. I know. I would love to sit in the backyard with my cats on my lap, basking in the sun, all day long.
Right.
Unfortunately, real life is there throttling you. You
Like
got taxes, and you got the lawn to mow, and you've got work to do, and you got people to see, and
right. Right. It's interesting, Monty. Like all this we talk about, it all. We talk about creating content. We talk about doing videos. We talk about publishing content, even with our courses, getting our courses going. All of this stuff relates to what we're talking about today.
Absolutely, just life in general.
Life in general, right? And part of the mechanics of that, from my lack of better words, mechanics, is that you're switching gears. So when you're switching gears, and if you're a solopreneur, even if you have a team, if you have a team, even if you have virtual assistants, you still have to put the systems in place. Even if they do it, you got to train them to do it. No one talks about that, but it's true. And all of that, with what we're talking about, that all has to play with, it's all in there. Like ragu, it's all in there.
Part of the equation, part of the ingredient.
It's part of the ingredients, part of the equation. And so thinking about it, and I love how you talked about taking the half steps. That's so helpful. So it's important to think about this, when, and what I find is a challenge too, is that with taking imperfect action, sometimes we're not thinking about it. We're not conscious of it. So at least from this podcast, we hope you get from it that you want to be conscious of it. How am I freezing up from taking imperfect action? What are the things holding me back? How can I take half steps? It's important. I guess I'm keeping it simple, huh, Monty?
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't need to get everything done just to get started. Those half steps or quarter steps. Just that, or to play on your analogy, it's like you're shifting gears, you're changing gears. Well, you can downshift, just don't stop.
Right.
That's my killer, is when you're like, yeah, I'm going to pull over and take a cat nap. Love me a cat nap, but they need to be strategic, because you do them at the wrong time and blow
That's
your whole
it.
day out of the water.
And 30 minutes top.
But that's that thing. It's like, okay, well, I'll just keep going a little bit. I'll just identify what's the 3 most important things. Which one can I get done?
Right. That's true. Oh yeah. Keep it that simple, and build systems that's going to help you out. Whether it's a planning tool like Asana or Trello, one of those is another. What's another one? Even if you mind map it, we've been talking about mind maps. We're loving the mind map game.
Loving that mind map game. Yeah, it's helping me on all sorts of fields, and it is a cool tool to help you take imperfect action.
Right.
You can mind map out, what are those top 3 things? Well, I don't know. I've got 7. I'll mind map them. That'll help you figure out the step. There's a mind map for that. Or
right.
No, you can mind map that. That's the saying. You can mind map that.
You can mind map that. And sometimes when you mind map it, you might have to switch it. That's okay. Take the half steps. Go for it. Take the action.
And a mind map is a cool way to map out the process too of the imperfect action.
Ooh.
Here's what I did. Here's why I did it. Here's my results. Here's what I want to do next. Yeah, you could totally, totally map that out.
Here were the roadblocks. Ooh.
Right. Here, yeah, exactly.
I love that, Monty. That's cool. I'm gonna take you up on that. Great idea.
Well, that pretty much covers what we talked about last time, and then added in a little bit of extra.
Little extra sauce.
Little experience. From
wisdom.
Then till now, from July 31st of 2023 to
now.
March of 2024.
Right.
There was a
That's
lot of
some-
experience that happened there.
That's right. That's some wisdom right there. Let's go. So I think we covered everything.
Well,
And one thing you mentioned last time too is repeat the process. And you kind of alluded to that too when you keep going. But be
right.
conscious of
And
repeating the
and
process.
alluded to that with the mind map idea, is that that's the point of mind mapping it.
Right.
And so the first time around, we actually put out those steps: plan, action, learn, map it out.
Mm-hmm.
There's the mind map, and repeat 2, 3, and 4 until you succeed.
Right.
So stick with your plan, take action, learn, map it out, take action, learn, map it out,
Mm-hmm.
until eventually the map's filled in. You're like,
Right.
hey, I got there.
That's right.
Even
You
if
could also-
if there is a milestone, not a destination.
Right. And you could also take it a step further. You could create an SOP. You could create a checklist. Because if you have to duplicate it, and if you have to teach someone or teach your team, create a checklist. SOP it.
SOP. Silly, obstinate people?
Something like that. I'm just kidding. Standard operating procedure.
There we go. The standard
Standard
operating
operating
procedure. If you've
procedures,
ever
that's
worked at
right.
McDonald's, you know exactly what that is.
You got that right. You want fries with that?
There is a standard operating procedure for everything.
That's right.
And so you can take that and make SOPs during the whole action, learn, mapping steps. It's like, hey, I'm trying this out. I've got this plan, taking these actions, learning from it, map it out. And I've done that enough now that I now have a standard operating procedure. This is how I do it now. I have this plan and this is how I do it. Because I went through all these imperfect actions
Right.
and mapped it out. And now I've got the answer.
Right.
And now you've got value that you can pass on to other people.
That's right. Monty, I might even create a video one.
A video?
I might it.
You might have to put that on a website.
That's right. Hey, that's another episode. That'd be cool. Gotta it. Put it on a website too.
Steps 1, 2, and 3.
I like that.
Well, that'd be a masterclass.
Good point.
Or just a class. Doesn't have to be a master class. It could just be a class.
It
could be a course.
And then a bonus.
It could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things. But Monty, we got somewhere to go soon.
Absolutely.
We do.
Got one of them things to do.
One of those things. So, is there anything else that you would like to mention at the end of our episode, Monty?
Just that if you want to find a way to take imperfect action and create a website, you just need a website. You don't need fancy spancy stuffs. You just need a web presence hub.
Web presence.
Just that place where it's like, this is me. This is the stuff I do. And here's the links to all my great stuff. I can help you build that. Just visit montyarmstrong.com. Scroll to the bottom and fill out the form.
Scroll to the bottom. I still need to set my system up like that. That's so cool. Well, if you want to get some help and be successful and having a strong presence on camera or on stage, you can go to carlaleen.com. You have to go to the contact page though if you want to reach me. I got to do that bottom thing. I'll do that next time, Monty. Well,
you'll get there.
I'll get there and I'll take imperfect action. Well, that's it for now. We'll see y'all soon on another episode of Get Found.
Be seen.
Talk to you later.
See ya.